Welcome everyone to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to be learning how to play the London system. But before we start, this is episode 1, and I'm going to be making a lot of these kind of videos where we go through openings, go through theory, and then we try to play a few games with them. Let's get into it. Alright, so to start the London system, you need to open with the Queen's Pawn and then move d4. This move controls the center and opens up your bishop to move at any moment. Now, we're going to be looking at the moves d5 and knight f6. Let's start with d5 because I think you'll be facing this more commonly. Now, the London right here is the move bishop f4. And this is what the London is going to be against anything. d4 and bishop f4. So what the bishop does here is it controls this, and it allows the other bishop maybe on your next move to open up and try to come to d3. And we have to cover every move from here, starting with the move knight f6, which is a move I think you'll be facing a lot, or at around the 700 to 1000 level, maybe lower, maybe higher. And right here you play e3, which is going to be your third move a lot in these sort of London positions. And we're going to look here at the move bishop f5, which is not the best move. If you want to write this line down, be my guest. Now, the idea of this is that you want to get the other pawn. You want to get the other pawn out like this. So you have to open this bishop and then you open that bishop, which is why you would move center pawns in the opening. And another point in the London is usually both sides, black and white, want to move their c-pawns either to c3 or c4. And usually how it goes is black plays c5 eventually, and then white plays c3 and tries to make a pyramid structure in the center like this. But a lot of people under 1,000 aren't going to be playing c5. They might put their knight in front of the c-pawn, which you're definitely not supposed to do. So in the London, when you haven't played c4 yet or moved your c-pawn, you shouldn't be putting your knight like this. Because if you see if you can look to the top left of the screen, I mean the top right of the screen, you'll see that here white has an advantage of 0.30 plus 0.30. And now it drops down to pretty much equal, especially if black plays like e6 and c5, like this. So we just don't play that. Right here, a move that I really like at around anywhere under 1,000 is c4. This can be dangerous if black eventually plays c5. But otherwise, this is fine. And we're going to look right here at the move d takes c4, which is not the best move by any means, and allows you to just take back with the bishop and have these two pieces crisscrossing across the open field ready for battle. And this is just really good for white. But black can still get a little bit of play and develop like this. And now black usually wants to give this check, so I recommend just knight c3, this, and just castle. Get out of the middle, play normally if you get this kind of position. But eventually you want to be bringing your queen out over here. Something that might look like is this. And now you attack this pawn. And maybe in the future you'll have threats of taking this and like sacrificing and winning something. Not right now because the bishop defends that. But in the future. And it's actually sort of hard to defend the pawn, which is good in a lot of London positions. Specifically in this kind of one where black hasn't even moved the knight yet. And so it's really hard to defend this pawn. Your opponent might play a move like b6, which is not very good, and you're already winning, or not winning, but you have a lead if you just develop your pieces. you castle, and you bring your rook to the open file. Now, a position you might get might look like this, where you just develop both sides castle, and then you bring your rook to the c-file. And then you can clear out the c-file by going like this, or this, and putting your bishop here, and you can target the knight. Or you can just keep developing, try to put a knight in the middle, whatever you want. But this is our perfect setup. This is if black doesn't challenge us at all. Now, what if black does? What if we get a position in knight f6 where we get this c4 and black plays c6? Or no, black plays e6. Now, you definitely don't want to be taking here. This is the worst you can do, because, I mean, now black has c5, and you have no c-pawn. You can't move a c-pawn. You don't have a c-pawn. Even if you think, oh, if you do get to the position for some reason, it's really not that great, but you can move your knight to c3 because you're not blocking a c-pawn. However, you can do a lot better than this, and this is not the kind of position I recommend. I prefer here the move on knight c3, targeting this pawn, trying to get your opponent to take, which is again bad. You just go like this and develop. You have easy development: queen, rook, knight, king. So your opponent probably won't do that if they play e6. Another thing to do is just to build a pyramid like this, which is hard to break through. And I like queen b3. That's the top engine move. You attack this pawn. And now b6 and c5 is one way to play. Sorry, that was a mouse up. Not that right now, but b6 and then c5. That is okay. And you might face that. And right here, you just develop. You allow your opponent to play c5 if they do. And then you just take like this. And you can crack open the center. You shouldn't take like this, though. You can do this because you have long castles. And you have bishop here. And you have an advantage if you do that. If you just crack open the center. Which is why you have to play moves like bishop e7 is the right kind of move. Just playing slowly and trying to castle. Also, you can sometimes castle long in the London. Especially if black plays sort of like differently, not with knight f6. But we're going to be looking at something now. Say that black just challenges our setup completely, like plays really well. We play e3, and this line and then opponent plays e6, and we play c4, and then they play c5. But what if we get this? This is really good. This is something I play with black. And I'll probably make a video on it at some point. This is where black, instead of white, puts the c-pawn out 2 squares and tries to pressure the center. And this is complicated. And sometimes people under 1,000 like this, sort of like with all this tension in the center, just explode and they start taking everything. So say you get to this. This is not good. Now black is actually better. Reason number 1, black has 2 pieces out. White has 1. White has 1. That's not supposed to happen. Black has this really strong knight in the center, which targets the bishop. Black can castle immediately. And black has free development except for this bishop, which doesn't really matter. Like, everything in this position for black except for the bishop is really good. which is why you can't just explode like this. You want your opponent to take you first, so then you can take like this. So you just keep developing. The best move here is knight f3, but that's it's a little bit weird because you're sort of ignoring this, and I prefer to put pressure on it like this. But you don't have to do this. Oh, that's the mouse. That would not be good. And the only problem with this is you get an isolated pawn. You're still a little better here, especially if you know the concept of isolated pawns and you know you want to attack this and then just shove the pawn forward. Like this. And if you can get this, I really like your chances. Something like bishop takes, and then you can't do this kind of setup, but because then you lose a piece. But you can do it like with a3, bishop back, and eventually you'll shove this pawn, maybe even g4, and then doing it. This works fine. And the best move is queen takes, which I like. Which I feel like it sort of kills the play, especially if queen takes queen. Like this is just equal, completely equal. So if you want to do something fun, bishop takes is not bad. And say black does something like castles, rook c1, knight f3, short castle. But there's other stuff in the London. That's not all you're going to be facing in the London. There's a line where black doesn't even play e6, just plays c5 right off the bat. And there's a lot you can do here. First of all, in this line, taking is not the worst thing, but black is better here if black either plays e6 or plays knight c3, e5, and bishop takes. If you play like knight c3 here, you're losing immediately to this. And black just has a golden opening. This is exactly what black wants against the London. And our goal is to not give them anything like that. Which is why I'm not recommending you take. I'm recommending here that you play the move knight c3. Wait, I'm not. Knight f3. Knight c3. You can get it kind of set up with like e takes, but I don't like this because then you can't play c4, right? So c5, I recommend knight f3, and if your opponent ever takes, you take with the pawn, and then you play c4. And black doesn't have a c pawn, and you have a d pawn and a c pawn. You have d and c, and black has d and e. So this is a good setup. Which in the London you can't just be taking everything. Another thing that might happen is this, which is a good move, and the point is, black is trying to put more pressure on the center, and here a move that you might not. It doesn't look the best, but c3, which is just these two pawns just lock this pawn in. So if takes, I think this is the best move, and this is good because now c4, right? So you might get something like that. But also, you have to keep in mind, what if black just keeps developing? And you can't get a huge advantage out of this, I'm going to be honest. Maybe eventually you take, because you're preventing e4, but then e6, right? What are you going to do? g5? This is losing. I mean, it's okay, but personally, I mean, after what, h5? Like what? What are you gonna do? Now this is gonna get this, and now they're gonna damage your structure, stuff like that. So you shouldn't be taking. You want to be taken, remember? So you just develop. You just keep going. And sometimes you make this trade. Sometimes you pin. Sometimes you go like this. 92, short castle. That's one way to play. Against this, these setups with c5, another way to play is knight d2. And, not knight d2, wait, knight d2, e6, and something where your queen comes out here and attacks the pawn. Now, normally, black here plays this, which is hard to play, and it's equal, unless you play c4, which is hard to remember. Because now if takes, you also have to remember bishop takes, it's just hard. You don't really need to learn these lines so early. You can probably just develop all your pieces. Play bishop b5, pin. Oh, that's a mouse slip. That would have been good, but that's probably not gonna happen. And you don't want to take, even though you're damaging the structure, because then black can just undouble their pawns right away. So usually, if you get stuck in this, you can't go backwards really, because this is a really big space advantage, and you have to maybe go like this, where you just get shut down, you just get caved in. And black has a massive space advantage. Sometimes this is even okay. You can even allow this, which doesn't look good. Something like this. The only reason it's good is because the knight can come to e4, and then this is just fine. This is just really fine, especially if black gets this, they're just winning. But we've gone really far here, and if you get all those moves, that would be pretty surprising. Something much more likely that you'll probably face against the London is the move knight c6, which is a bad move. It's a really bad move, by all means. And right here, you're going to play the move e3. I don't care if it's not the best move. It's really good, and it builds up for c4. Now that black can never move the c-pawn, you just play c4. This is what you're hoping for. If you get this, c4. c4, who's going to stop you from playing c4? Knight c... And the position you might get might look like this. Like, this is really solid. This is really good. This just works. This setup is always going to work. Nothing bad is going to happen here. Here. No, not there. Here, castle. And then the queen's going to come out here and attack the bishop. a6. Try to take. This is your golden setup. This is exactly what you'd want. So what if black doesn't take this pawn here? You keep pressuring. You'll keep pressuring. Like, if e6, you put pressure on the pawn. And if this, which pins you, and that might look a little scary, just this. This is fine. It looks like you're doubling your pawns, but what if if black takes, they're undoubled, you're winning. And if black doesn't take, black just develops, then you can take. Now they're undoubled, like this. Now this isn't great for white, but especially if you do something like this where you lose this pawn. Which is why you have to play the move. There's not that much you can do here. You have to play the move knight d2. If you play c4, you have a space advantage, but this is bad. This is really bad. First of all, the bishop for the knight. Also, you lose a pawn. Everything's gonna fall apart. There's castles. Just knight takes two, and you're gonna be losing positions like that. Which is why if you get this, you have to play knight e2, defending this pawn. And if takes, you have knight takes. Now you've built up your structure, and this is really good. But that's not all. That's not all. We haven't even looked at the symmetrical London. Bishop f5 on the second move, which is okay for white if you play e3, And what if they just copy your whole entire setup, e6? And right here, I recommend the move knight f3. However, if you get this, I used to play this with black. It's not a bad opening, but you have to know what you're doing. One of the best, if you get this, the best move here is really hard to see, and it's winning. It's completely winning. It's this. So, pause the video if you want to. You should try to find a way to find why this is good. This doesn't look good because bishop takes knight. I mean, it's not a great trade, right? The problem is there's check, and who's gonna block that if the queen blocks? Well, then just take the queen. The king has to move, and that's bad. This is winning. Now, and then you just blow the center up. You take. There's also the move c4, which is that's not great. There's also the move c4, which is a dirty move, and it's threatening to blow up everything, explode the center, and well, black's king is in the center. Just kill everyone and win. That probably won't happen, but that's one of the moves that's hard to see. Like that's hard to play. And if queen takes, which is actually the best move, the king can slide over this way, but this is still winning. Especially if you play what's the top engine move? What? Bishop e2. This? Why does computer want you to play bishop e2? Oh, so you can. Okay, I don't understand. I'm not good enough to understand the stockfish, but whatever. And I think after we're gonna look at one more thing, and we're gonna finish our studies of d4, d5, bishop f4, bishop f4. Then we're gonna look at knight f6 on move 1. And the last thing we're looking at in d4, d5, bishop c4 is the move c5, which immediately blows up the center and is, if you look back at the top, c5 is one of the best moves. It's, in fact, is it the best move with climbing? Oh. Okay, for some reason it dropped, but c5 is really good. I play it. And it just works. It takes this and this and this, and then black is winning. So you don't take. And I'm going to give you something that I usually only put in Gambit's videos, but this is going to confuse the heck out of your opponent, the move e4. It's sort of like an Alipin counter Gambit. If you know what that is, you probably don't. There's a lot, and the problem is, what can your opponent do? Like, they can take two things. What does that do? If they do take on e4, you push forward, and now you're trying to give this check without the opponent being able to block with a knight. That's the point of d4 here. And a move that looks, I need to show you this. It's a crazy thing. A move that looks good is the move e6, and it's losing immediately. If you play the move bishop b5 check. Now, opponent has to play, really should play bishop d7, and now you take with the d pawn. Now, if our opponent takes the free bishop, they lose to the move. Wait, before we look at that, spoiler alert, by the way. Before we look at that, we have to look at the move bishop here, which isn't a good move because this, and then you win a queen. I don't care if your opponent gets this because a queen is worth more. And you also have this check, and it's probably like mate at the end. I don't know. Just take everything, and then don't hang your queen. You can let your opponent develop because you have this, and you have this, and this, and this, and you're winning. But the nastiest trap of all time, I have to show you here. D takes. And what if they take the free bishop? E takes. If they take this way, they lose their queen. We win. Be careful. You have to look out for some things. Like if you just develop and you leave your queen there, bad stuff might happen. Like if you play g5, okay, then you lose your queen. Which is actually still fine. It's funny. You allow this. I mean, just don't do this, but it's not losing by any means. Just you have to bring your queen back as soon as possible. And then castle and play normally. But what if opponent sees that if this, they lose their queen? And they move their king up. So now you might think, bishop here, oh, it's over. I'm going to x-ray. But then this, now what? We'll think, oh, well, then I'll just take and make a queen. No. Well, if this, then yeah. Then you're going to win. You'll probably get that and win. But you have to remember something. If you do make a queen, they can take with check and then take your other queen and be winning, which is hard to see. That's really hard to see. So you think, I want to take this knight so I can give this check, but if I take this knight, I lose my queen, I lose my other queen. It would be nice if I could take this knight and give check at the same time. Can you find the move here? You promote and you make a knight to check the king, and so now they can't take your queen because they're in check. They have to move their king. If they say like if they move their king here, then they lose their queen. So if they move their king here, what's the best move? It's queen h5. That's insane. And then queen e5, and you fork. And you also probably have mate. And if they take, then you have this, and you x-ray, and you win the queen. And you actually, sometimes some people will mate themselves, like this. It's very likely that you'll get this. And if this, just take it with the queen, actually. And then you just develop, bring your knight, and try to mate your opponent. That is what we're going to look at in this video. We're going to look at one more thing real quick. d4, knight f6, bishop c4. And the one thing, if they play d5, well, now you're back in a normal London. And if they play c5 right away, our last thing, you play e3 and you just play normally. You wait to be taken. If you get back in this kind of London, c4, you can afford to have an isolated pawn when you can just shove it forward. And you have really nice position. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you liked it. We're going to be making more videos like this. I'll also be making videos that aren't all about openings. Videos where I play games. Videos where I play my subscribers. And hope you enjoyed. And have a wonderful day. Happy holidays if you're watching this on the day it was out. The day I made it. Goodbye and enjoy the holidays.